Oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we know that the Prime Minister broke the Conflict of Interest Act. It's obvious that he thinks that these kind of rules don't apply to people like him. But it's not just this law that he broke. He also broke his own open and accountable government rules on ethics. And we only know about this because he was caught. Mr. Speaker, what possible explanation does the Prime Minister have for his conduct?
Honourable Prime Minister.
As we know, Mr. Speaker, this was a personal family vacation with an old friend. But as I've said many times, I am working with the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner to answer all questions relating to this.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, he doesn't get to have a private, privileged conversation with Mary Dawson. He is accountable to this House and to Canadians. A huge distraction for him, and it's taken his focus away from what matters the most, which is creating jobs. It's obvious to everyone that his focus needs to be on jobs and the economy, not on damage control for one self-inflicted wound after another. So why did he put himself in this position in the first place?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
To the contrary, Mr. Speaker, we remain focused on growing the middle class and supporting those working hard to join it. In our first year, we lowered taxes for the middle class, raised them on the wealthiest 1%. We brought in a Canada Child Benefit that gives more money to 9 out of 10 Canadian families by doing less for the wealthiest families. We're focused on investments in infrastructure that is going to create good jobs now and opportunities for our small business and our communities to thrive in the coming years. We're investing in research and innovation in a broad range of things to make sure that Canadians have good jobs now and well into the future.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, maybe the Prime Minister talked to the Aga Khan about this next issue, but I'd like him to answer our question. He only has two ways to balance the budget. That's getting his spending under control or raising taxes. We know he's not going to do the first, so he's going to do the second. And the latest target is health and dental benefits. That proposed new health tax means that most families will pay an additional $1,000 more in taxes. Many will lose their benefits entirely, and they'll be left vulnerable. So can the Prime Minister please tell us, is he seriously going to put a tax on health and dental plans of millions of Canadians?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Our approach, Mr. Speaker, has been on lowering taxes for the middle class, and the only taxes raised were the ones on the wealthiest 1%, which that opposition party voted against. We are looking at how we're going to help Canadian families get through the challenges that they're facing and create opportunities for their children and then grandchildren to thrive and succeed. This is the focus we have: growth for the middle class, help for those working hard to join it. That's what we're going to stay focused on, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Hey, Mr. Speaker, millions and millions of Canadians are finding this out through the media, that the Prime Minister may actually tax their health and dental plans. People rely on these for prescriptions and much-needed health programs. This will leave millions of people potentially without insurance and vulnerable. So can the Prime Minister focus on the economy and answer the question, is he seriously going to put a tax on the health and dental plans of millions of Canadians?
Yes. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as you know, Budget 2017 is coming up, and we're looking at ways within that budget to help Canadians, to invest in their future, to lower the costs of the everyday goods and pharmaceuticals they need. We are focused on how we can help Canadians succeed and thrive in the coming years. That's the focus of Budget 2017. That's what we're working hard to deliver, as we promised, to Canadians in the middle class and those working hard to join it.
Chef de l'Opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's policies did not create jobs before the election of the new U.S. administration, and now it will be much more difficult, according to the National Bank. The measures proposed by the U.S. President will cut our exports by 10% and plunge us into a recession. Perhaps the Prime Minister is not worried, but Canadians are. Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell Canadians what his plan is to protect our jobs?
Right
Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Since the new U.S. administration has come to power, and even before that, we pledged to work with them, our ambassadors, the people in my offices who are in very close contact with the United States, to show how integrated our two economies are. 35 different American states export primarily to Canada. Millions of jobs depend on the countries on both sides of the border. They depend on open borders for our goods and services, and we will continue to present those arguments to the Americans. The Honourable Member for Outremont. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The United States has banned access to anyone if they happen to come from a number of Muslim countries. A Canadian ally is blocking access to their country to individuals based on their religion and place of birth. The Prime Minister talks about the importance of standing up to intolerance and racism. So why is he refusing to denounce this policy that breaches fundamental human rights and that will inevitably have consequences for Canada?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the two preceding questions demonstrate the important double role that this government has. We need to make sure that we are protecting Canadian jobs and growing the economy by having a constructive working relationship with our most important trade partner and ally. And we're also standing up for Canadian values and principles. That's what Canadians expect of us, and that's what we've demonstrated over the past days as we have stood loudly and clearly for the openness, for the welcoming, for the compassion, for the strength that Canadians expect of all of us.
The Honourable Member for Outremont.
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, but it is always the role of a Canadian Prime Minister to stand up to racism and hatred.
The Prime Minister plans to meet with the President of the United States in the coming days. Canadians have been clear. For them, the Muslim ban is completely unacceptable. So will the Prime Minister denounce, on behalf of all Canadians, the Muslim ban when he meets with the President of the United States? Yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect their Prime Minister to stand up for their values, for our principles, and to advocate compassion and generosity. It's the best way to protect and promote our values, our strong communities, our united communities. I will always do that. I'm here to defend Canadian values, and I will do so loudly and clearly. The Honourable Member for Outremont. Enough with the fine words. That's too easy. Now it's time for action, Mr. Speaker.